Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar. I am Larita McDermott with Unanet's Customer Success Team. Today we are going to cover the topic of ad hoc reporting. If you have questions, please type them into the questions box on your webinar dashboard and we will review them all at the end. This webinar will be recorded and will be available online within a week in case you want to review it again or share with someone else on your team. All of our webinars are located on our Knowledge Center. You can find them by typing the title of the webinar in the search box. If you experience audio or visual issues, please try leaving and rejoining the webinar or try using a different audio option. I'd like to give a quick recap of the customer success role. Your customer success manager is your main point of contact within Unanet. Our role is to help our customers optimize their use of Unanet, as well as provide general account support. This includes communication on renewals, new products, events, etc., etc. Please feel free to reach out to your customer success manager for any Unanet questions. If you don't know your customer success manager, please contact us at our general email, csm@unanet.com. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. We are very happy to have Gwen Hess from Unanet University to present. Gwen, are you ready?
I sure am. Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm excited to be able to present today's webinar on ad hoc reporting. So let's take a little review of what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be going through basically these sort of 5 main areas. We're going to look at, well, what is an ad hoc report? How do I get to it? How do I use it? What kind of role would I need, if you will? We're going to be talking about using the right criteria to be able to return the right data that you're looking for. We're going to look through selecting what columns that you'd like to display on the report. We're going to look at some ways in which we can do some totals and calculations. And we're also going to talk about the ways in which we can share ad hoc reports with other people. So let's get going. What's an ad hoc report? Well, ad hoc reports are just ways that you can customize a report so that you can return back some tabular data so that you can just run these by whatever role that you particularly have. And we're going to talk about which roles actually can run ad hoc reports. And then once you have set up a report, then you can save it, you can run it, or you can download it as a CSV file. So that's one of the cool things about an ad hoc report, is that you can do some different things along with it. This screenshot here is just an example of an ad hoc report where we pulled some information about users within our Unanet system. Okay, so who can create ad hoc reports? Well, your systems administrator, if you've got the admin role, you can create ad hoc reports, and you have access to all of the different data areas within Unanet if you're a system administrator. If you are a manager, meaning like you are in a supervisory type of position and you have approval groups that you're approving time for, so managers and HR administrator roles can access the people data areas. So if you're trying to get information on people, those users within your Unanet, then again, the manager and HR administrator role has access to the people. Now, if you're a project administrator, like a project lead, a project manager, a project viewer, a project approver. So if you have those project administrator roles, then you have access then to the project data areas. So maybe you want to go and get some information on a particular project. You're wanting to verify some of the names within the tasks, say, on a project. So you would have access to that. Now, if you are just someone who is sort of a worker bee and you just have the timesheet and expense reports available to you, those are your roles, you do not have access to any of the ad hoc report functionality. So just be aware of that. So if you're creating an ad hoc report and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, my people can run this report against their own data, but they're only a timesheet or expense user, they're not going to be able to do that. because they don't have access to ad hoc reports. So, talking about accessing them, well, how do we access the ad hoc reports? Well, they are found on the reports dashboard. So if we were to go and look at the reports dashboard, we would see that ad hoc is in this little submenu area. So that's where we would access it. And by clicking on the plus ad hoc report, then you're able to create one. And once you've created an ad hoc report, then you also can go ahead and save it onto any of the dashboards where you would like to access it from. So you can kind of see here in the background on this screenshot, you can see that little save button down there. And when you click on that, you get the little pop-up window that allows you to say, well, where would I like to add this to? Which dashboard would I like to have that on? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about creating ad hoc reports. Now, there are several different things that we need to take into consideration so that we know how we're going to go and grab that data and pull it and make it available for what we're wanting to be able to do. First off, know that ad hoc reports are only looking at data areas particular to people or projects. Okay? So with that, you'll notice when you first come in and you've done plus ad hoc report, the first screen that you're presented with is one that says, well, which data area are you interested in? And you only have two selections in that dropdown, person and projects. Then within each of those particular data areas, you're now going to say, well, what view of that data am I interested in? So this field really gives you a listing of specific data entities or the relationships of entities that you can get to within that data area. So it's a combination of the data area that you picked first, either people or projects, and which data view that you want that determines what you have available. So in this screenshot example here, the data area that I picked was project. And so then I have different views that are available to me that I can pick from this listing. So if I were wanting to look, for example, at assignments, I might look at assignments that are at a project level. Or maybe there are certain projects I'm looking at that I know have tasks and I'm managing at task level. So my assignments are at the task level. So then I might need to be looking at the view that's looking at my assignments that are down at the task level. And there are a whole lot of other views here as well. When we get later, we're going to take a look in Unanet during this webinar. And when we get to that point, then you'll really see how many different things are available to you as you're looking at these different views. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do when we're creating our ad hocs is we're going to decide which columns that we want, because once we've picked an area and we've picked a view, then we have certain columns that are now available to us. So you'll see in this screenshot, I picked my area was person and my view was expenses. So that's what's first going to show up here in this report name area. So you can always, when you're saving this, rename it to something that is meaningful to you in regards to the type of data that you're pulling. But when you're first creating, this is telling me, you know, the exact thing here too, that it's my person, it's my area, and expenses is the data view. And then it starts presenting me with all the various columns that are available when I'm looking at it from this view. Now, for those of you who are on the webinar, if any of you have experience with you know, coding or doing queries against, say, a SQL database, then talking about views of data is going to kind of sound familiar to you, because it's really what we are doing is we're utilizing the power within the database to be able to pull this information out for you in an ad hoc fashion. Okay, so just like on most things where in Unanet we've got a double list box, we're going to pick items from the left. We're going to put them, click the right arrows and move them over to the right. Or if we have something we've moved to the right and that's not what we want, of course, we can pick it and move it back over to the left. And then we have our up and down arrows that allow us to say, oh, I'd like to move this particular field so that it's in a different order, because the order of these report columns is going to be how they display themselves on the report, going from left to right. So if whatever I have at the top is going to be the first column on the left. Okay. So another thing that we can do is this thing called break on. I'm just going to go ahead and show this screenshot. This is very much like what we were just looking at, but there is a button here that says break on. So whichever field I have picked out of my selected report columns, if I say break on that field, then that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to say I'm going to break every time there is a change in this value. So here, every time that I have a different person name that appears in my data that gets returned, I'm going to break on that. And so once I just select what I'm breaking on, then I have an opportunity, as we're going to see in a couple of minutes, to do some subtotaling or some averaging, or some other pieces that I might want to get information on the data that is based upon that break. And we know that we have done a break on this because this little symbol is marked beside of it. And so that way we have that nice visual cue. And we're big on visual cues in Unanet. We have that nice visual cue that tells us that this is a field that I have selected to do a break on. So now, once we have this much information together, like I said, maybe we want to do some sort of numeric calculation based upon what we just did that break on. And we can do this by doing a sum, an average, a minimum, or a maximum. So depending upon what we decide here, it's going to look up on that data. Now, if we didn't do any breaks, it's going to do it for everything. And we are going to get a total at the bottom when we have decided we're going to do this. We're going to see that again in a few minutes. So by us utilizing that break on, and by us saying that we want to sum, and what I've done is I've said let's sum on this expense report line item amount. So I'm doing this looking at expenses for an individual. So now I get a report that's going to look like this. So I have an ad hoc report. Again, I'm looking at the person area, the expenses view. I told it I wanted to break on the user, the person name, and because I said to break on that and I wanted to sum, so now I have a sum at the bottom for all of these line item expenses for Frank. And if I were in the system, and you'll see a little later, if I were in the actual system and I was going through here, I would have a sum for every time that the person's name changed. So you see, this is kind of a nice little thing to have if there's something that I'm wanting to get something a little different to be able to pull together. So another thing that we can also do within our ad hocs is that we can do sorting. Oh, not that kind of sorting. Sorry about that. How did that get in there? We might want to sort our data in a particular way. So here on the sorting tab, we see that I had all the columns that were available, and I could say, well, which ones do I want to actually sort on? And this I've only got 4. And because I'm doing this break, it's automatically going to be sorting by that. But maybe I also want to furthermore sort by my expense report line item amount, because I want to see those dollars in their order numerically from the smallest to the largest. So this allows me to just do that to show that I'm looking at this these values going from smallest to largest. So I ended up having two sorts in this report. Now, there's some other things that we can do in here, and that is we can add in some particular criteria. Say I want to pull in and get information that relates only to certain things. So think about like a selection criteria screen on one of our standard reports. This is allowing you to do something similar to that. But what we're doing is we're saying, let's restrict this data that's getting returned, but we're going to base it on some sort of common formulaic criteria, like does the value equal something or does it not? Is it greater than something or is it lesser than something? Does it contain something? Is it null? You know, is it not null? So there are different pieces, and we'll see when we get into the sample to show you here. So for the report that I've been running and showing you the values out of, I had said, let's just pull everything that was expense report line items that were May 1st through May 10th. So in doing that, I had to add two rows in here on my criteria. I utilized the operator of greater than or equals, and I said the value is May the 1st, 2018. So that means that I want to look for anything where the expense report line item date is equal to May the 1st, 2018, or greater than that. And you'll see over here on the right, there's a and. So I say, I want this, and then by adding another row, I said also, let's look at anything that's less than or equals May the 10th. So then my resulting report only gives me line items of May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 9th. Now, this operator area here is a drop down. And you can see here I have the opportunity to say, you know, formulaically, is this value that in a column equal to a particular value? Is the column that I denoted not equal to a particular value? Less than, greater than, less than or equals, greater than or equals is null, meaning that there's nothing populated in that field, or is not null, meaning it's got something in it. I'm not necessarily worried about what is in it. I'm not asking to make a criteria choice based upon what is in it, but just does it contain data? Because maybe I don't want something returned if a particular field doesn't have data in it at all. Or maybe I want to have a report where I'm looking at data where only if a particular field is null. Maybe I want to do some sort of validation to make sure that maybe I just added a whole bunch of new users because we just won a big contract and we just hired a bunch of people and I just added 20 new users in this system. Maybe I want to have some sort of little validation report where I can double check to make sure that some of those non-required fields, non-required to Unanet, but that I would like to have required, say, email address, that I've populated those for everybody. So this is a great way to utilize this ad hoc function to be able to get. Now, some other things that we can do when we're creating ad hocs is we can also create some custom columns. So what do we mean by a custom column? Because we're like, well, the data's got to be somewhere in the database, so what's a custom column? Well, this just allows you to take some data and some available operators like plus, minus, multiplied, and the like to get a piece of data that is not in a field in the database. So for example, I'm running this report on people who are have an expense report, right? And maybe some of those expense reports have a markup on them. So markups in Unanet, when we enter that on the expense type, we're creating a new expense type as a systems admin. If there's a markup, we might say it's on there, on that master list. Or if we are a project manager who has the ability to update information on a project, we might give a mark on an expense, adding the number. Now, in other functions within Unanet, we know that that's a percentage, but in the ad hoc, I just see it as a number. So I first had to do a little bit of math. I had to say, let me look at that markup, divide it by 100, so I get that percentage, multiply it by the line item amount, and then add it to that report line item amount. So that way, what gets returned to me is I've got a 15% markup. And so I have a line item that was $55 with a 15% markup. So I needed to get to this $63.25. See, this is my custom column that I created. So what I did was I said, I need some additional info. Let me do a formula on it so that I'm able to then say this marked up by this percentage is going to give me this value. So now we're looking at stuff a little bit deeper. Some of the things that are just a little bit more, maybe not as obviously intuitive, you know. So think about that, because as I said, I had to go in and actually do a little bit of math to get to that point. So you have to kind of play around. I'm actually going to go back a slide here. I had to play around with this because initially I'm like, oh, well, it's the allocation markup plus the amount equals the column. But like on that row that said $100, it said 115. I'm like, well, that's right. And then on the row that was $200, it said 215. I'm like, well, that's not right. It should be 230. And then I realized that what the field was actually looking at was just the 15, and I had to do the markup. Again, for other reports that are created, the standard ones in Unanet, and for standard functionality in Unanet, the coding takes care of all of that. But on an ad hoc, you might have to play around a little bit to make sure that your calculation is coming out correct. Okay, so we've created this awesome ad hoc report. So I'd like to share it with some people. I'd like some other people to be able to get to it. Now, we know that if there are standard reports where we have created a particular set of criteria and we've saved that, then those reports are available under those saved, shared. I could just hit config on any of my dashboards and be able to see a listing of all of the saved reports. But how do I share an ad hoc? Because that's a little different. It's not a standard report in the system. Well, there are a couple of ways we can do that. So first, on the ad hoc itself, you can create an export file that you're going to send to somebody. So you would go onto the reports dashboard, you would click on ad hoc, you would go into the particular one that you're wanting to send to that other person and edit it. When you get to that edit, down at the bottom, there is this little button that says export. Now, if you click on that, then you can create, let me go back a screen, then it actually creates a .xml file. That's the extension on the file. And then when it creates it, you can download that. And then you email that to somebody. They and import that, and they would have to click on reports to get to the reports dashboard. They click on Ad Hoc, but now they're going to click on plus Ad Hoc Report. When you click on that, you have an opportunity to start afresh and create a new one, but there's also this button down at the bottom that says import. So when you click on the import, then what that does is it allows you to go and choose a file. So let's say that someone had emailed me, that .xml file. I would have downloaded it out of my email and had it probably in my downloads folder. So I could go and I could choose the file, I could import it, and then it's going to just give me as a page for me to run that. Okay, as if it were an ad hoc that I had created myself. And then I could make a choice to save that on one of my own dashboards. So that way it would always be available to me. But I'll want to make one point clear when you're sharing ad hoc reports, as in any type of report, if the person who is receiving that information will only get back on the screen to them that which their role allows them to see. So if a report contains data that receiving user doesn't have permission to see, then the import will load the data, but it's going to drop any of the columns that they can't see. So think about it. If you are creating an ad hoc report, and let's say that you have the cost rate manager role, which allows you to see the cost rate, which in essence, you're seeing salary information. So let's say that you have that and you've created a report that lists, users and their current cost rate. And you send that to somebody who does not have the cost rate manager role. Well, that cost rate column will not even appear to them. It won't have a header. It won't have like a column of empty data. It just will not show that column to them at all. So when you're sharing these reports, if a person does not have the capability of seeing something, that column will not even present itself. So they might see the other data, like maybe the username, maybe their, the date of, that they first, well, I'm trying to think of other common data that they might be able to see. Maybe their email address. Maybe that is something that you had a column for, but let's say cost rate was one of them, they wouldn't see that. Okay, so that's sort of the, simplistic way of first thinking of how you could share your ad hoc data. But for those who are Jedi Masters within Unanet, we know that there's something else that we might want to do. And that is, maybe we want to make this available to people a little differently rather than having to email them individually. So if I have this saved board of this URL, there's a letter and a number. It's A_, this number happens to be 36 on this one, but this is an ad hoc report. But once I have this number in here, then a systems admin could create a broadcast, that email message. I'm using the power of the email reminder here, because I can schedule those. So maybe I want to create an ad hoc report, and as I say in my example here, this is the report for the Monday meeting, and I schedule it to go out to an internal organization who meets every Monday to review expenses. And so I put a nice little message in there, run this report and be ready to discuss at the Monday meeting. And then I put in this URL that includes that number there. Now, because I have done it in that way, then it makes it available for me to be able to get to that. So again, I had to go in under admin and setup and into my email reminder to be able to get to this and create this. And then a administrator could then schedule this to go out at a certain time every Monday. So that's another way in which we could do that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a few ad hoc tips, tricks, and some common uses for ad hoc reporting. Now, the report column headers are clickable and sortable as long as you haven't included to break on a particular data element. So like in my example in this slide deck, I had made a decision to break on person name, and so that took away the capability of the columns for me to just click on them and sort. But if you don't have a break in there, then you can click on any column header and sort based on that column header that you clicked on. You can also pull any user-defined fields that you may have into your ad hoc reports. So if you've made a user-defined field called favorite color and put that on your person record, then you could pull in that and have an ad hoc report to find out people's favorite color. Ad hocs can be saved to the dashboard, so we talked about that, but because we also have that capability of saving them and running them and getting that little number on the end of the URL, that means we can also use them as a basis for a refreshable web query as well. So if any of you have been playing around with refreshable web queries, then you could also pull in an ad hoc into that. We talked about the ability to create those custom columns, and so you can do that to do math right within the report to get you what you want. The text fields can be searched via the contains operator in the criteria tab. So remember on when we had that criteria, we said we could do like equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, but the contains, you might be wanting to run a report for everything that contains June in it. So you could do that and look for something that contains the word June. And so that's another thing that you can do. And really the most common usage of ad hoc reports is just to be able to get you some simple reference reports. So like I said, you might want to verify some new employees, that you've set them up right, making sure that you've got their email address and their cost element in there. You might want to verify your project setup, making sure you've got your cost structures, as well as maybe those settings that you have to make sure you've got them set correct so that it'll line up with your DCA compliance. And you also might want to do a report on people so you can see the rate escalation of their cost rates. You know, in essence, write a quick reference report that would show you everybody, the effective cost date and their cost rate. So you'd be able to very quickly see, you know, when was the last time I gave these people a raise, without having to go in and look at each individual person record. Okay, with that, let's go take a look at Unanet at some of these screens and just sort of see what it looks like, okay? All right, so let me pull up my Unanet here. Got it on one of my screens available. All right, so make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So I'm in here. I happen to be in here as a systems admin just so that I could have everything available to me as we're rolling through. So on the reports dashboard, then I would just go into this submenu item called Ad Hoc. Let's say I want to create a new one. So I could come in here, and again, I'm presented with those two data areas. So I only have the ability to look at person or project, okay? So let's say that I want to look at person. And let's say, because if I pick person, I have all these views available. If I pick project, I have a different set of views that are available. So let's say I pick person, and let's say I want to look at task assignments. You know, there are things that have been assigned down at the task level. So now I hit continue, and this takes me now to all those other columns that I talked about. So the first thing is it's saying, okay, well, here are all these various report columns that are available. And you can see there are a lot of them. So you kind of have to think about, well, what is it that I want? Well, maybe I want to look at people. So I wanted a person name. I want to know who they are. So I've got some fields in here like person first name, and I have person last name, but we also give you this nice little concatenated field called person name. So that way I don't have to go and pick two different fields. I can just say person name. Let's see, I might want to come down here and look at the, because I said I wanted to look at task assignments, so I'm not going to see any project assignments in here. I'm only going to see task assignments. So maybe I want to see a begin date that for what they have. Maybe I want to see if there are any hours associated with this assignment. Have I given them a bucket of hours? And maybe I want to pull that in here too. If I'm using location, maybe I want to see if there's a location associated to this particular assignment as well. And let's see, maybe, let's see for something else we might want to grab. Oh, I probably want to know a little bit about the project too. So maybe I want to know the project organization code, because that's going to tell me the customer. And I know it's a combination of the project org code and the project code that make it the unique project in Unanet. So I'm going to need both those fields so that I know exactly which project it is. And then I might want to know which internal group is assigned to that. So maybe I need to know my project owning org as well. Okay, maybe that's all I need. Maybe I want to reorder this. Maybe I want that project code and that project org code to be up here by the person name. I can just grab both those fields and move them up because I highlight them both and use my up arrow to do that. Maybe that owning org needs to be up there as well. And maybe that budget hours, because that's maybe something I'm really going to want to look at, is there. Maybe I want that task assignment end date also. Let me go and look for that one. Now you'll notice these are in alphabetical order. So it's like task assignment. I've got to go up here and there's end date. All right. Oh, I want to move that up so it's right by the begin date. Okay, maybe I'm happy with those columns there. Let's see. I could do some sorting. Since I'm kind of interested in this by people, maybe I want that to be the primary thing I'm sorting on. And maybe I want to know the customers as sort of a secondary on that and sort by that. So maybe I've got those types of things. I could put in some criteria if I wanted, but I tell you, let's go ahead and just run this and see how it looks. Okay, so I've got some information here. I've got my person name, and I see it's sorted here by person name. And then I'm seeing particular customers. So here's all my customer 1 that Chris Director is assigned to, and then followed by my customer 2 that Chris is assigned to. And then I've got my assignment begin dates, I've got my assignment end date, and then I've got my task assignment budget hours. Not everybody's got budgets on their hours, but some of them do. So I can see those who do and those who don't. I could come in here, and if I wanted to say, let me sort this looking at the owning organization. Now, since I didn't do any breaks here, any break-ons, I can go ahead and sort it by that. So you'll see I have like that little up and down. So that tells me I've done it ascending. If I click it again, then I've sorted it descending. Again, because I didn't put any break-ons, say don't break on a particular thing, that's the reason I can go ahead and do that type of, sorting it by the column headers. So I can just sort it by begin date. Oh, looks like we have some BOT, EOT stuff there because I'm looking at January 1st of 1900 to December 31st of 2099. Another one of those reasons why you probably always want to make sure you're using actual dates and not letting it default to BOT, EOT. Really messes up your Gantt chart if you're trying to look at that. So I could go back to criteria and I could, change this up some. Maybe I do want to break on something. Maybe I do want to break it on person. And then maybe I do want to summarize it on those, and it knows which fields have numerics in it that it can do math on, and it's at budget hours. So let's say I want to sum on that, and I could run that, and now I get a break at each person, and it gives me a sum of any of those budget hours that I have. And if I come all the way, down here too, then I get sort of a grand total at the bottom as well. So, and also I could download this as a CSV. So if I wanted to download it, I just would say download. It's going to download it as report.csv. You could go, because it's going to be in your downloads folder, you could rename it, whatever that you wanted, because what I've done here is I have downloaded the data. This is my resulting data that I have downloaded as a CSV file. And so I can go ahead and I can open that up in Excel. And I just did that. It came up on my other page. So I can come in here and I could look and see this data in an Excel format. Pretty cool. Let's put that down on my other screen. All right, let's go back over to our slide, and we're up to the point for having time for some questions. Larita, have we had any questions out there?
Hi, Gwen. Yes, we have indeed. We have quite a number of questions. And let me remind everybody that any questions that aren't answered by Gwen now, we will have them disseminated to your customer success manager, so they will be answered. Not to worry. All right, let me take a look here. First, is there a master list anywhere of all the available column choices?
That's a good question. Let me go and take a look at the help docs real quick, because I don't know for sure that there is. So let's go take a peek. What I do know is that we tend to see that these get added to a lot, where that there's a field that people haven't had available, and they say it would be really great if I had something available there. So I'm just in the help docs under reports and looking at ad hoc reports. It tells you about it and working with report results. So let's see, define your report columns. It doesn't look like we've got a listing of that anywhere. Yeah, I didn't think we did. I know we're adding to them all the time. Let me take just a moment also just to tell you where you can find information to know if we've added something. Maybe you send in suggestions at unanet.com saying, here's a field that I'm not seeing in a particular view that I would really like to see. If you go to our Knowledge Center, and over here on the left, there's this item that says blog. In the blog, it will tell you things that are added into any of our various point releases. So we could come in here and let's see. So I'm trying to see if there's any, that's 10.3. Let me look at a couple of these, because I know a lot of the times what we'll see is that we have added new fields. But this would be a way in which you could come and take a peek to see if a field had been added. Enhance the person expense ad hoc reports to add a new field for report line item, allocation, invoice number. So we will add new things as they're needed. And I just wanted to show you, here's a place where you can come and see, but there's not a current list of the things that are out there that I know of.
Wonderful. Someone also asked if they will be getting a copy of these slides.
What we can do is we can make these slides available on the Knowledge Center site when we upload the webinar recording, then we can just also attach to that page the slide deck, and then that way you would have that available for you.
Thank you. So if a field is on the form, why would it not be an available column for the ad hoc reporting? An example was given, such as the project people assignment cost element.
Okay, so if we're looking at like a people assignment, project assignment cost element, okay. Well, if you don't see that one is available, then I would suggest again that you just send it to suggestions@unanet.com saying that that's something that you want. You might also be looking maybe not necessarily in the right way. Like here's the project assignment cost element there. So I don't know if that's the one you were looking for, or perhaps there was something different that you were looking for. So, but here, this is like on a project assignment. There's the cost element that's associated to that assignment.
Okay. How do you manage the column widths and wrap the column titles?
Oh, you can't exactly manage how those are going to turn out. It's going to really depend upon how many columns that you have selected, and then it's going to try and display as much as it can, and then it may actually just go off onto this. You may have to scroll across the bottom depending upon how many columns that you have selected on there.
Can we do cross-tab reports?
Cross-tab reports. I don't really know that I understand what they mean by that. If they can give you another what they mean in regards to that.
Okay, I'll look for something coming in on that.
Yeah. Okay. Give me another question then.
Sure. Can we do multiple queries in one report?
With that, are you meaning like multiple queries on criteria, or that you're trying to do, you're limited within your area and your view, so that you are going to just be able to say what resulting columns? You can create the custom columns, but you're going to be limited still to the same area and view. So it's not like you're going to be writing a SQL expression where that you're saying pull this from that table and this from a different table. It's not like that. So what I'm kind of hearing is it sounds like you're trying to do some joins across multiple tables, and you're not able to do that. You're limited to how we've got it set up within the particular columns that are available. I mean, obviously, these are coming from multiple tables, but yeah, you're not allowed yourself to do some other kind of join.
Okay. Is there a way to select multiple views, or can you only select one?
You can only select one.
We have a question that asks...
This is not something that's...
I'm sorry, go ahead, Gwen. I interrupted you.
Yeah. Oh, it's all right. No, this is not a sophisticated reporting tool. This is meant to be something that you can get some very quick referential information on. And, that's why I gave some examples of ways in which people very commonly use it. It really is not to be trying to do very deep diving into multiple tables.
Okay, I have one that says, my report shows all cost rates. How can I show a person's last cost rate?
Okay, well, what you're going to want to do then, if you're looking, trying to look at cost rates, is you're going to have to also include the field on the effective date for that cost rate. So you're going to have to look for that one within there. So you'd have to come into like person and rates, being the view that you're looking at, and make sure that you're pulling in your effective cost rate along with that. Probably could play around a little bit with the criteria and the operator, but then again, you'd have to have some knowledge of maybe when was the last time that most increases had happened. So you might be looking for something that's greater than a particular date, still might return multiple rows to you if they'd had more than one increase in that amount of time.
I believe she wrote in, no, this may be someone else. It says we set criteria for end date that equals EOT.
Ah, there you go. Somebody else gave us the end on that. Thank you. That's a good think about that.
Thank you,
Because
Vicki.
when you're, yeah, way to go. Because, when you're looking at a particular rate for someone, the end date is EOT. Excellent. Good point.
I don't know if this is related or not, but someone also asked, can a report be created to pull specific time period information for time reporting?
You can, because you think about it, time is a function of a person because a person enters a timesheet. So if you pick a view of time, then you do have the capability to look at like timesheets. You get down here, you start getting to timesheet information. So you can come down here and be looking for, I don't know, there's a time period somewhere in here. Let's say now, time period, begin date, and end date. So you can use those fields, and then along with your criteria, you could look for a particular time period that you wanted to find.
And this I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer for us, but several people have asked if there was a way to create ad hoc reports that show financial or accounting or general ledger data.
Unfortunately, those areas are not yet available within the ad hoc reports. We have heard that repeatedly from our customer base that they would like to have that. Again, if there's anything that you would like to see within Unanet's capabilities, always send an email to suggestions@unanet.com because everything about Unanet has been built from the get-go, from its inception and everything forward on something that a customer had said that they would like to see in the product.
Okay, and I think we have time for one last thing that just popped in. It says, can you show how to limit the time reporting criteria for a specific time period?
So like a particular time period. Okay, so let's say that we are looking for, and let's just find the person name here. So let's look at that. Okay, so we'd have to have some information about this. So we'd have to know like what the time period dates were, for example. So I'm going to go over here and see what I have in my system here under admin setup and my time periods. And if I got a list of that, okay, so I have a time period begin date that's 6/1/2018. Okay, so I could go over here and in my criteria, I would look for my time period begin date that's equal to 6/1/2018, and then that should pull up that information. And now, obviously, I was just looking for things that had that. I could go and, look for, some projects or totals and things like that were entered. But, that's how I would do my limitation to get a particular time period.
Awesome. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Gwen, for the great content and Q&A. Once again, the webinar presentation will be available online within a week. And for those of you who have questions we didn't get to, you should see those responses soon from your CSM. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great day.